My name is Sarah Donovan, and I am in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Today is September 30th, 2020. I am interviewing Denise Krebs from Manama, Bahrain, for the oral history project titled COVID-19, Teacher Poets Writing to Bridge the Distance, which will be archived by Oklahoma State University's Oral History Research Program. So welcome, Denise.
Thank you.
I think let's just begin by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm Denise Krebs. I grew up in Southern California, and then my husband's a pastor, so we've traveled a bit around the United States. We lived in Arizona, Michigan, Iowa. I taught in those places too, and then Then the last 7 years, we've lived in Bahrain. He's a chaplain at a hospital, and I teach school here. So I've been teaching on and off since 1986, I guess.
And how did you decide that you wanted to become a teacher?
It was a little sideways. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a teacher. I always, like around 5th grade, I think that was my favorite teacher. So I started loving school and teaching then. And so I did want to be a teacher. But then in college, I changed. I was actually more interested in just learning. So I kept changing my major, going here and there. And I had been there 6.5 years. This was back when tuition was free in California at state universities. It was very nice. So we had very small fees we had to pay each semester. So I just loved to learn, and I just kept going to school. Finally, I decided I better finish. So I just took a geography degree because it was the closest thing I was to finishing. So I took 1 semester of geography classes and finished. But then later, I went to I went to Michigan. I think that's when I got married. Yeah, I went to Michigan and got married. So of course, what do you do with a geography degree? Nothing. But we came back to California. And so a friend who was a principal at a school, he asked me to teach. So I really came in the back door. I was teaching without a certificate. And so while I taught, I went back to the university and got my teaching certificate. And I fell in love that year. Yeah, teaching 3rd grade, just with some education background from my university years, but not a full certificate yet.
Mm-hmm. And what grades then have you taught over the years?
2nd and 3rd. I was kind of going chronologically, but actually from the years kindergarten, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 5th grade, and 7th and 8th.
And where are you now teaching? Tell us about your teaching position at this time.
I teach in an Arabic and English bilingual school. So I'm teaching English to mostly native Arabic speakers. And I'm just one of the English staff. So the kids are mostly, get much more practice in Arabic than in English, because at home mostly they're learning Arabic. So it's been really a unique and different experience. But so I'm actually transitioning out of my job right now. Someone is coming to replace us. We'll probably, in the next year, we'll be leaving Bahrain because my husband's visa will expire. That's how I'm here on his visa, actually. And so I have about 47 5th graders and this now in COVID time, it's in 4 different groups. So they come. Yeah, that's a whole different schedule. Some of them were coming live, but that only lasted for 2 days this fall.
Well, we're here to talk about the impact of COVID-19 and about how writing impacted your experience or helped you make sense of your experience. So I wonder if you can talk just a little bit about your writing life before we get into talking about the pandemic.
Yeah,
Have you
I've
always been a
always
writer?
loved, yeah, I think I've always been a writer, but again, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. Like I haven't been passionate every minute of my life, that I can go years probably without writing hardly anything. But this exponentially grew my writing life, what happened in the spring, because I've been blogging since like 2010. So I do, I write like mostly education related stuff. And I was never a poet though. I taught my students poetry, and we had a lot of fun, and I felt like I loved to read poetry, but always with my students. And we always did a big poetry project and wrote poetry books. And so I was always engaged with them in that. So it's not like it was totally new, but I had never, until April, I had never written with peers and done anything seriously with poetry. Like I never felt like I was a poet. I would have never described myself as a teacher poet. Now I do. Thanks to you and this group.
Thank you for that. I wonder if we can kind of go back to, the spring of 2020. When did you learn that that COVID-19 was having an impact on the way that education was working for you in your community there? So if you can take us into the moment where you sort of realized that things were going to change as far as what education looked like for you.
Isn't that funny? That's going to be one of our moments, isn't it? Where we won't forget where we were. So I have images that come to mind when you say that question. And it was on February 25th. The whole summer and fall, I left the date that my student had written on the board for the next day. Actually, yeah, so it said February 26th. It was tomorrow we would come back, and that was her date she had written there. So on the maybe it was the 24th, it was a Monday, the first case came to Bahrain. And so that evening we were at the store, my husband and I, like Mondays was our date night. So we went out for dinner, and we went to the store, and we saw people like clearing off the shelves of all the sanitizer and buying up everything. You could tell it was like, okay, COVID has come to Bahrain. That was the moment for me, like I realized it. And so the next day we went to school, and there were some kids with masks on, and they were half flying in the wind all the time at recess. They're running around, hitting each other with sanitizer bottles. It was like, at that moment I said, we're not going to be able to keep them safe. Like if this is what this is, we're not going to be able to do it. And the next day we didn't come to school. So I'm not sure I had all the dates right there. But so we found out the next day, we had one day of school. Then the next day they said finished. We didn't go back until the first week of September. And we tried it with all the protocols and the protections. But like I said, it lasted 2 days.
Can you, so when everyone went online then, or when you said like we couldn't keep them safe anymore, what then did school look like or feel like for you? And did you have any influence or role in shaping what that would look like for your school?
I guess I was always thankful that I didn't really, I have been thankful that I'm not on an administrative team to plan this, because really it was so overwhelming and so new. We had a lot of work to put it together. Of course, we were on committees, and and we would make our plans, and then but eventually someone would say like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And it changed every week. So from the first time, I remember the first meeting we had, they were telling us to be creative, and we want to keep it fun for the kids. And that first, oh my goodness, that first lesson, I think it was as long as my arm in some ways. I just have no idea what I was thinking. And so like we were using Flipgrid and da 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 da, and the kids were overwhelmed and they didn't know, like, I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, so we really, okay, let's scale this back, and we have a pretty good plan now. So it's been trial and error, and yeah. So the first, in spring, we only did video lessons. So we would make videos and post them, and they would do the lessons. It was fun, but we didn't get much Zoom time. At first, actually, I was doing, before they said no Zoom for kindergarten through grade 5, I was doing it a few times, and then, and that was fun. We were trying like breakout rooms. I'd like, okay, let's try this and see what happens if we go into a breakout room. Like, we were totally this like winging it and learning about it ourselves. But yeah, we had some fun. And then by the end of the semester, we did start having, like, we would call them open hours, and we'd invite the kids who had questions about our lessons. All the 5th grade teachers would be together, and we would let them come in and talk. But it was mostly like a show and tell, kind of a we miss you, and like we just want to be together. I don't think they ever asked a question about the learning much, but they would show us what they were doing and making. And we had done Genius Hours, so they were showing us their projects, and yeah, it was fun. So this year, it didn't seem like they even hesitated. They just said everybody's doing Zoom and Google Classroom. Oh my goodness. So we had 2 new things thrown in the mix. So the teachers really are overwhelmed, I think, at times with so much new stuff.
Well, one of the reasons that we're doing this oral history now is that the pandemic and the closing of the school as we sort of knew it, or the quarantine, coincided with the National Poetry Month in April. And so teachers came into this website space and were writing a poem a day there. And so I wonder how that sort of fit into your day and your practice as a teacher, or just as a human being during this time.
We were, I think before, that's what happened to me sometimes in my writing life. I would just always prioritize education, like my students. So my teaching just always took priority, which was really unhealthy, in so many ways. Like, there have been a lot of silver linings from us having this happen for me. Like, so I have less stress. I lost weight just because I eat healthy now, and I exercise, and, like, things that I had neglected totally have now become more of a priority for me, including writing. So I was, I used to try to do like the slice of life in the month of March. And one time I did it with my students. We tried to do it and keep it up, but I didn't, I've been successful just smidgens around over the years, So then this time I did it because I was out of school the week before it started. And so then I just noticed on Twitter people talking about it, like, oh yeah, okay, I'll do that again. I'll try it again. So I did. I wrote that whole 31 days. And then Glenda Funk had said in one of her last posts, she had mentioned the ethical ELA and the poetry writing coming up. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try that too. Just a whim that made me say yes. And then and then you just get hooked. Like, from the first day, when you write a poem and everybody's like saying such nice things and encouraging you, and the prompts were so fun. And so it just became something I had to go back to. So.
I wonder if you would share one of your earliest poems from that month. I think that you wrote one titled Dad, if you would mind sharing that with us.
Yes, I'll write this. And this was one of the prompts that meant a lot to me when it was Stacy Joy had something about music. I like the ones that are like intricate, like you have to do this and you put it together and it becomes something different. Like she asked us to use some musical terms and to pick a song and to find some lyrics from the song that spoke to you. And I don't know how I picked Bye Bye Miss American Pie by Don McLean, but that's the song. So, and then the topic, I don't know how that happens. It's like magical, right? So it all came together, but that was like one of my favorite prompts. And so this is called Dad. Sometimes symphonies remain unfinished. A long, long time ago, he was 43 years old, the devil's only friend. The day the music died, he was singing, bye bye, too many kids to feed, too many emotions to weed. Bye bye cigarettes, bye bye vodka. Before they married, his widowed bride was blind to all the minor keys in which he played. His childhood a telling overture of the whole rhythm and blues opera. What would an abusive alcoholic's magnum opus be anyway? Maybe it was the 7 kids lost in space, trying not to misstep. Bad news on the doorstep. They turned out nice, not into vice, stayed out of jail, tried not to fail, cute at all costs, not too many lost to dysfunction with alcohol. One, when promoted to CHP captain, asked Mom, watched him on the stage, hands clenched in fists of rage. Do you think Dad would be proud yet?
Can you talk a little bit about the subject of the poem? It's just, is it biographical?
Yes. Yeah.
And coming into this community to do some writing, was it a surprise that this is where the poem went for you? And how did it feel to write it? And how does it feel to share it now?
It is interesting to share it out loud. I mean, on videotape, I guess it's kind of that was the first too for me to read a poem in any situation like this of mine. But that was only on day 5. But so already I had so much, so much encouragement and also models of sharing their hearts, and like the other poets share such meaningful things, and then the responses are so good and meaningful that I just was ready for it already. Yeah, I felt like I had friends already in that group, even on day 5.
And what did that mean in light of what was sort of going on in the world to have that space for you?
Oh yeah, I can't imagine what. Yeah, I don't. It's interesting because I don't know how it would have been different. I had said, there were times when stress had, taken over and made me stop important things, right? So had I been just stressed with this COVID, I don't know how it would have been different. Interesting question to think about, huh? But I know, like I said, that was one of the silver linings, but because I did have more time, really, you only have to teach 2 lessons a week, and they were video lessons, and I could just pop those out and post them, and then the technology part was easy for me, so that's my job was easier and less time consuming, so that's what freed me up to be able to do it.
Well, I wonder if you will share a second poem. I believe Good Friday was one of the poems that you mentioned also had an impact on you during this month.
Okay, and this one was fun. We had an author, Craig Hill, shared that golden shovel poem idea. So I picked that This is just to say poem by William Carlos Williams. And it's at the end of each line. But this was on Good Friday, and I remember sitting on the couch and just starting to write. I mean, I wrote the words down the side of the page, and then I just started writing and filling in. And so that's what's fun. Like the first one, I said that sometimes it just feels like it's a little magical. Like, how did that come? So I just did it and posted it. It was in the morning, and I hardly even thought about it, but it is meaningful to me because I'm a Christian, and Good Friday was that day. So, so it's a Good Friday just to say. This week started with a parade I witnessed. Shouting and waving my palm branches have given me hope. Too often I've eaten of this desire, dreams for the future broken again, grapes and plums crushed into sour wine that is poured out and wasted. Were you informed of this in heaven before you agreed to the plan? Heaven must have been an icebox the moment the plan was devised and executed, which brings us back to you here now getting lead-studded lashes. Were you tempted to split the earth and let them all fall in? Probably. Crown of thorns, my God groaning, but saving some bit of hope after the forsaking for a fish-laden breakfast on the beach. All to forgive us, the world, villains, sinners, trespassers, me. Sour sponge, dripping vinegar they gave to relieve your pounded nails, pounding head. Were you aware that your forsaken cries would become delicious victory over the grave? So we would be able to say it's Friday, but sweet Sunday's coming, and our scarlet sins could become so clean like fire and snowy cold.
Denise, when you read that out loud, is there something in the poem that surprises you?
Yeah, I did. Just now I noticed that part up here, like I was thinking, who is the audience, in the I, and because I thought this week started with the parade I witnessed. Shouting and waving my palm branches have given me hope. Too often I've eaten of this desire, dreams for the future broken again. I wondered what that meant, and if it was about me that I didn't even realize, but
it struck me as also the questions that you were asking in the poem, and sort of a wondering, and I wonder if there were, being able to sit and write during this time like allows us to start posing questions, because we've kind of settled in and start saying, oh, these are the things I'm wondering or curious about, and part of the reflection process with that.
Yeah, another one of those silver linings, I guess. Just so much more time reflecting and writing I've done this last few months.
Well, COVID has impacted states, countries in different ways, and we're able to kind of have a little bit perspective now, looking back at how it began in the spring. So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about, as a country or as a city where you are, how much the pandemic sort of impacted. You mentioned a little bit about the stores at the beginning, but through that spring, leading into the end of the school year, how did the pandemic really impact your city or country?
And our country is really like it really is almost one, because it's very small, like the county that I lived in Iowa before we came here. 2.5 Bahrains would fit in the county, Sioux County, where I came from most recently. So we always think of that as a very small place, and it's. I just asked my husband today, how does our positivity rate or our infection rate compare to the U.S.? Because I don't know. Like here, like we all know someone who's died and had COVID. Like everybody here knows somebody, and not maybe not died. Well, died in India or here. Everybody. I guess that's true for anyone in the world. We all know somebody, I think. but here, like it's gradually growing here still. So like right now, I just found out this morning that we're playing that domino tracing, contact tracing dominoes. Someone told me this morning, I was with someone on Wednesday night, and then we were together on Thursday morning at work. And so she said, I'm going to have to go get tested. And we're all like, this is quite government based. Like we all have apps on our phone at school. We have to be, a phone location thing, and it tells you if you're by anyone who has it. And it's interesting. But yeah, so she said, I don't think I have it. I have to get tested still. And so then, but I'm just warning you, they might call you, so we're like, it's just getting, yeah. And then, so that's why it seemed weird, even when we went back to school in person that September, like the daily rates were doubling each from what they had been over the summer mostly. So then it was like up to 700. It has like 1.5 million people. So then there's like 700, 800 a day. So it seems like we're always knowing someone. It's not like in some of the places in the US, I have friends who like they just seem to be living their life normally. They're all back in school and everything seems normal there, but here it's not kind of normal. The stores are struggling and they're closed most of the time. And the restaurants, they try to open, like they're open for takeout food and they try to open, so there's a lot of similarities for what I hear in the news. Like we'll watch the news in the US and then we see it here. So it's very similar with businesses just struggling. And
so what does date look like now on Monday?
Oh, we go, so here's our date night now. Oh, we go whenever we can, whenever it's convenient and we don't have a Zoom meeting. Isn't it funny? Like our calendar is just full of Zoom meetings now. Like I have a meeting at 4:00 and 7:00 but when we don't have a meeting, we'll try to go at like the quieter hours, like right after school is a good time to go for a walk at the mall. Because here the culture is a lot like the stores will be closed from 1 to 4 p.m., kind of like that siesta time in Mexico, but it's like that here. So we go to places where it's a little quieter, take a walk, or we'll go on Friday morning to the mall before it opens and walk, because it's still really hot here. So we don't walk outside just yet. We will soon be able to walk outside. And then we'll get a cup of coffee and take it down to the beach. We sit in the car and leave the AC on and look at the water while we drink a cup of tea or coffee. That's a date.
It sure looks like you're looking for places to have some sense of normal or to create that for yourself. Yeah. I wondered, there was a poem that you wrote around day 53 of being home. I think it was a haiku. Do you mind telling us a little bit about that and sharing it with us?
Okay. Yeah, that was a day. Let me see. I wonder. So, yeah. Today it's about 216 the days. I'm counting the days in my calendar since that February day when we stayed home. But this haiku was on a day. I never did get back to that prompt. I was just too busy during the 30 days of poetry writing. So it was the one day that I didn't really do it. But I was walking to school and I saw a mask on the ground. It was probably just after they did the mask mandates here, and there was a mask laying on the ground. And I just thought, oh, here we go, because it's a little bit messy here sometimes, like litter-wise. It can be And then I just wrote, and I was like composing it on my way to school because I knew I didn't have time for anything that day, I guess. So anyway, it's in these virus days, increased layers of litter greet and expose us. Yeah. So I was thinking of one.
Can you read
it once more?
Yep.
Okay. In these virus days, increased layers of litter greet and expose us.
The greet and expose, well, for me, like that word expose has so many layers to it. That's one of the wonderful things about haiku is that there's sometimes surprises when you read it, and you can read it in multiple ways. But the word expose, like exposing our hearts, exposing our minds, and then of course exposing us to virus as well. There's layers of meaning in that short haiku. And some days during the poetry month, we just have time for a few syllables, That's very powerful. Well, I wonder, now you say you're well into 200 days. Some states quarantined through the end of the school year. Some, closed their buildings permanently all the way through the summer. How did your school year end?
Yeah, I think it was not trying to remember when we knew for sure that we would not go back. At first, it's funny how you can take it a step at a time. But like you mentioned before we started this, that it, like you're trying to make it a career, like figure out how to keep going because maybe we're not almost done, but part of us just wants to be almost done, right? We keep saying, see you soon to the children, and we hope that we'll be back soon at school. And I know it's probably not true. And even then we would say, like when we stayed home that very first time, they said 2 weeks. And then I remember in March, the ministry or the MPs, I guess the lawmakers, were meeting and deciding, like voting on whether to be gone, like to stay home the rest of the year. And my heart was just broken. Like I thought, no, what? The rest of the year? But at the same time, part of you knows, right? Because you think if the first case is here of a pandemic, like, of course, it's not going to be over in 2 weeks, like it's not going to be over in 2 months. It's going to go on. And so I had this debate always with myself. This class that I had last year was, I had them when they were in kindergarten too. So when I came to Bahrain, I started in kindergarten. And that was new for me. Like, oh my goodness, they were such babies and so cute. And I fell in love with them then. And then when they were in 5th grade, I loved them even more, of course. So then we had to leave in February, and I missed them so much. And I wanted to finish the year with them, but I didn't get a chance to. Because somewhere, maybe after 2 months, they did say, we won't be back this year. So we knew that, and we tried to make some special things happen, and we started having those meetings. Like at the end, we had a Kahoot game with selfies, like they all shared a selfie, and then on Kahoot, how you can have it like gradually open and show who they are. They were like, they took selfies with like little disguises. It was fun and cute, and like that's all. We just did like little silly party type things, if you could. I do this thing with beads on strings. I call them pearls of wisdom, and so they earn them for things over the year. And so I kept that up last year, I was proud to say, and I would show them, I would have a little pearls of wisdom ceremony every quarter and put it on a video, and then I gave them those beads on a string in their bag when they had to come and pick it up and take them home. So it was all just different, but we managed to say goodbye in whatever way we could.
Well, so do you feel, so it sounds like the Pearls of Wisdom and kind of picking up those packages was a way of having some closure to the year?
Yeah, I mean, as much as you could. And you never got to see everybody because they wouldn't all show up to our little Zoom meetings. And, even that last selfie Kahoot game, like everybody wasn't there and everybody hadn't sent a picture. So yeah, it wasn't the same. And now they're in grade 6 and I feel for their teacher because, one of the things that we noticed last year was some of the kids who are not very good in English yet had really good support and help at home. And so they were doing really well. Like they did really well on the online school and they were really devoted and, somebody was really helping them a lot. Then there were other ones who were better in English, really. Their acquisition was better, but they didn't have help or they didn't care or whatever, for whatever reason. They just looked like terrible students. So it was like somehow we didn't really get a good picture of them through that kind of learning, right? And we weren't even live with them very much to see them and to communicate with them. So I thought about their 6th grade teacher this year. How is he going to even be able to get to know them? But now with Zoom, it's a little better. I'm finding I'm getting to know my students better now. I can tell the ones who, I can tell even just from speaking and listening to them, you can learn so much from them. So that's what we're doing now. At least we have Zoom so we can get to know them better.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned how some students seemed to do well with the online and some seemed less engaged. So I wonder if you have any sort of aha moments about, what education should be like, or maybe some lessons learned from like you talked about silver lining a couple times, but what have you learned about education or about teaching that you think maybe we need to make some changes or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question, and I don't know if I've stopped to think about it much yet. But one thing I it'll be a silver lining eventually. I hope we get to go back to regular school. But in the meantime, what the kids have learned and the teachers in technology and using Google Docs and Google Classroom, I think that will carry over and really be good throughout whatever kind of education we do. So that's something good. But yeah, there's just something missing. I was going through a lot of my things lately because this new teacher is coming, like I said, so I'm transitioning out and she's coming in, and I had all these nice little cards that you would give to small groups, like one's the speaker and one's the voice controller, and so part of me is like, who needs a voice controller anymore? We can just mute them, like it's just like I have this whole different set of ideas about what teaching and being a teacher is. Yeah, it's not very challenging on Zoom when you can just mute someone who's interrupting.
As you're talking about this, it's making me think about one of the poems that you wrote about the spice cabinet. And I'm hearing, and I wonder if you'll share it because it's really making me think, literally, about the cooking, but figuratively about us kind of going into our ingredients and how our ingredients and what we're using, what we create from it has kind of changed. And so if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about that poem and sharing it with us.
Okay, so my, this was your prompt. It was day 26. and you had us do a spoken word poem. And I remember thinking, like, I heard your example. That was an excellent one too about education. Oh my goodness, you wrote a good treatise on education that time.
Mhm.
So mine, I remember thinking I would never have, I might not have stayed if you would have asked us to write a spoken word poem earlier in this month. But by day 26, I was ready for it. And yeah, so probably my number one silver lining has been the fact that my eating has improved, my cooking has improved. I lost 25 pounds. I just don't even know how it all happened, except like no restaurant food and not going to people's houses and not stress eating. That was probably the bigger one. So it's been really fun. So here, my Genius Hour project with my students was to clean out my spice cabinet and to start using some spices. So I did that with them, and it made a lot of difference in my life. So here's 4 reasons why you shouldn't be afraid of your spice cabinet. Okay, 1, I used to be too, using cinnamon and basil and oregano and salt and pepper. When I felt exotic, I'd add a pinch of cumin and a smidgen of chili powder. Nothing louder than what you'd find in a steaming bowl of chowder, though. 2, when I got older and bolder and experimented, I always loved to eat savory, flavory dishes, so why not recreate them in my kitchen? I can try, and try I do now, because you see, 3, my spices are becoming a touchstone for me. I look in my cupboard and see so many jars of hope, flavors brimming, ideas bubbling, whole leaves, pods, seeds, some crushed and powdered, as the hours are in my life. My time is limited in this place, in Bahrain, where the flavors are exquisite and the spices are pennies. My time is limited on this earth. My time is limited in the kitchen. So 4, I want to use every hour, every recipe, every moment, every meal to the fullest, to the tastiest, to the joyful hope of a new beginning.
Well, I'm so glad that you stayed and that you wrote that. It's a beautiful tribute to spices and also time. And, you know, you mentioned hours a couple times, and the hours in my life, and to the tastiest, and to what's next. And I wonder if you will talk a little bit about what's next for you in your teaching career in the months to come.
Yeah, I'm hoping, like I said in that poem, I guess I'm hoping to live life fully, more fully. And so I feel like this last 6 months has, as I said, has helped me to reprioritize, to think that I could have been a healthy teacher by only thinking about teaching is really an unhealthy, proud thing to be thinking, you know, that I didn't have to take care of myself because I was so busy teaching. Like, that was crazy, you know. So I don't want to ever forget that. And I don't know that I'll be going back into the classroom full time in the future. My husband is getting near retirement age. He'll start taking Social Security pretty soon, and so I can, I know I'll always be a teacher, and on some level. So I hope that there will be some exciting opportunities. And like right now, I'm working on finishing up a TESOL certificate, and because I've enjoyed learning how to teach English to speakers of other languages, and I had never really been trained in that before, so I'm just working on that on the side and using what I learn in my class now, and so I hope that someday maybe it'll be online, helping some kids or something, because that can happen all around the world now, right? I could be tutoring kids from California. We retire in Joshua Tree California sometime in the next year, we hope. So yeah, so I'll be teaching in some way.
Thank you. Well, we've been talking almost an hour now, and I wonder if we could wrap up with one of your poems. I believe you wrote a Blitz poem, and if you could tell us a little bit about what that is, and maybe frame that poem a little bit for us, and then I'll have you read it, and then we'll end our interview.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Okay, this a Blitz poem. I don't know if I could explain it very good, except there's a lot of repetition. And yeah, it was one by Glenda Funk. She told us that on day 2, we did a Blitz poem. And I was, again, because you can follow a formula, and I was new at this poetry thing, but I liked that. And then it was a success, and it sounded beautiful to me, and other people said nice things about it. So then it gives me encouragement. But I chose a Blitz, I think, because of Glenda, because she was the one that brought me there. So at the end, when we were saying thank you to people, I wanted to use that to say thank you to everybody else and to Glenda. So it was our last day, and it's called Writing with Verse Love. Thank you, mentors. Thank you, God, for writing poems, writing hearts of longing, hearts of healing traumas, healing brokenness once unspoken, brokenness poured out in poetry of triumph, poetry of laughter in knowing, laughter in tears of renewal, tears of cleansing from old hurts, cleansing like therapy of self-awareness, therapy of celebration of spoken words, celebration of written words, words like treasures, words like flowers of magic, flowers of moods to relay, moods to wander not aimlessly, wander to ponder hindrances, ponder existence of whispers, existence of universal truths to craft and form, truths to craft freely speaking our hearts, freely reading one another. Another day passed, another poem written in quiet, written in embrace our new friends, embrace our sure future of hope, future of verse love. Verse love sustains, verse love restores, sustains.